Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Deep Weeb podcast, where we have conversations about learning Japanese, learning self-development, and other deep things like otaku culture. I'm KanjiEater, and joining me again is Jordan.
Hey, what's going on?
So tonight, we have another special guest with us, Alex, aka SomewhatJP. He's been described as a love child between Japanese ammo with Misa and Dogen. He's a YouTuber, hired as a game developer in Japan. He's been studying Japanese for about 3 years. Welcome to the show, man.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's super cool to be on here. I watched a couple episodes before, so it's really nice. But
Sweet.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What have you been up to these days?
Yeah, so I'm heading. The plan is to head. I'm heading to Japan next month. Finally. So I'm just doing all these like wonderful visa stuff, which is always fun. Once I'm there, I'll be settling into Tokyo, and basically just getting ready for my game dev job there at a Japanese company, which is exciting but terrifying. It's great. It's a good mix.
That's awesome. I'm actually really excited for you. Going to Japan was for work was the best experience of my life so far. So I have no doubt, given your history, that you'll really be able to do some amazing things over there. Let's go ahead and transition into our goals segment. Deep goals. Ooh, never mind. We are not going to do the live chat segment of that because I failed to set that piece up tonight due to all the excitement having the great Alex on our show. So instead of having the live chat actually showing on screen, go ahead, like we did last episode when it was down, just go ahead and type it into chat. We'll still shout it out. But let's go ahead and talk with Alex about what goals are you working on, man? In your words, in your latest video, you were talking about macro and micro goals. So maybe we could start off with what's your macro goal right now?
Yeah, I like using that. You're using that.
It's good terminology. I'm gonna start using that on the show, man.
No, nice. I'm glad. It makes sense. I think that's how I've been like ever since I started. I was like talking about. That's how I kind of like thought about it, and then I kind of put into words later. But yeah, for my macro goal right now, I think I mentioned it a little bit in my video as well. But basically, because I'm going to Japan, kind of being able to handle myself in situations there it's my more of a general macro goal, I would say. But there's so many different like situations I've never had to deal with. Like right now, talking with like a realtor is like what?
Yeah.
And like just that by itself can have its own issues. Stuff like figuring out how to call in the embassy in Japan and explain how do I what needed documents for like my corona test. What is this thing like? What stuff like that? Like getting around all these things that's my macro goal, which is always exciting. But and then my micro goals towards those are kind of those. I kind of like segmented it in that way, where like being able to handle a call to the embassy in Japanese and like explain and understand what they're saying, kind of thing, is part of it. And there's most of my stuff revolves around like just drilling a lot of vocab. I'm a big vocab guy. So
what would you say is something recent that you've accomplished on this micro goals path? Like, have you knocked anything out recently?
So I've had I tweeted this the other day as well, but it was I have like monthly like meetings with my company, talking with like two of the higher ups there. We just kind of talk about like just kind of update and keep in check, because I've had the offer for a while, but because I couldn't come, we kind of wanted to keep that relationship. And each time it's been kind of rough Kegel wise, like I would break that Kegel here and there, but they would understand because I'm still working on it. But I wanted to like properly be able to do it. So recently, like my last one, it went like so smoothly. I felt like really, really comfortable with it, and I like didn't really stutter too much and stuff. I just felt more comfortable with that. And before, I've always been like super nervous before all of them. It's just kind of like that general feeling. I felt like I smashed a goal in some way there.
Yeah. So I mean, so for those who don't know, Keigo is the Japanese politeness language thing that we have really no equivalent to in English. I think it exists in some other Asian languages as well, but I only know Japanese. So it's one of those interesting things that we don't really have to think about, and it's notorious for even being difficult for native speakers, right? So at least once you get to the advanced pieces and actually using it properly in all the different contexts and that sort of stuff. So how did you go about preparing for something like using Keigo? Like what does that mean to you?
I mean, I have been doing a lot of practice where I can with friends. Even like I have a couple of friends that they're learning English, I'm learning Japanese.
Oh, nice.
So like every time I just have a couple of friends that whenever we'd call, I'd always speak in Keigo to them, even though I normally speak like friendly language with them and everything. Right? I'd only speak Keigo with them.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, so that's helped a lot. I do Italki as well, which maybe we'll touch on later. But like there, I did a bunch of interview practice, which like helped my Keigo tremendously. But most of it just being like not even understanding the many like grammar points, just getting like enough phrases down where like pieces of phrases, and it's now at this point just a puzzle. Like I have a bunch of Keigo pieces, and I just how do I apply what I currently know and connect them to make what I want to say, kind of thing. So it's been kind of collecting those pieces and getting to use them, kind of thing. I would say.
Jordan, have you done any specific study into Keigo yet?
No, not quite. A little. Well, in 2014, I studied abroad, and we took like a one lecture Keigo, and we had older people come in and talk to us, and so we were supposed to use Keigo, and like the old woman who spoke with me was just like, you speak really good Japanese, and I don't want to use Keigo. So she just wanted to tell me about like her farming. And so I was like, okay, sure. And so the teacher would come by and it would be like, you're not speaking Keigo, Jordan. And I'm like, I know, but, and then the woman would be like, don't worry, he's speaking Keigo just fine. And so that was my Keigo experience.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, with my experience in Japanese, I studied it a little bit early on, and then I just memorized like I've said, I did like a couple introductions to like the company, and then like to the sections of the company that I was in. So it was like memorize something for them, but then with everybody else, I just use pretty standard Japanese, like a little bit of Keigo in there, but like using like polite forms. But
right,
yeah. So actually, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about learning Japanese. So what got you interested in that in the first place?
Right, yeah. I mean, for me, I kind of started. I didn't even start wanting to specifically work in Japan. I didn't think that was like a possibility in a way. It feels like reaching so far away. I didn't even think about it. But so I just started straight up because I was planning on visiting Japan. So I had a vacation plan, and I was like, might be useful to know. And I'm also in the game industry, so it might be useful to know. So I started doing that. So that kind of was like my main driving force for a little bit, just like, I just want to have fun. I know it's gonna be better if I know Japanese when I'm there. So it's kind of pretty chill that way. And then I started actually enjoying it a lot. And then at some point, this was in my third year of university, I think. And for my university, between third and fourth year, we can do like a 1 year and a half, basically for the summer plus 1 year of regular schooling plus one more summer, that amount. So like almost a year and a half of internship instead, or not instead, in between. And then I can go to fourth year. So during there, I was like applying to stuff, and then ended up getting an offer for a company in Tokyo. And I was like, dope. I've been studying Japanese. I somehow got this.
Nice.
I'm going, kind of thing, right? And that was in maybe like October. And then so once I got there, I was like studying so hard. I was like, oh my god, like I need to go hard. I'm gonna do well. It's all in English, but like it was like the job was all in English. But being in Japan for that long, I'm gonna have to speak it. And then from there, like around like February or so, I just got a random email, and they were like, oh, like never mind, kind of thing. And I was like, well, wait,
Devastating.
right? Yeah, it was a blow, let me tell you. So from there, because I was studying so hard, I was like, I still have my vacation planned. So let's just use all this like hard studying I did before, add onto it, and like enjoy whatever. And it worked out in the end. I got a good job instead.
So did you actually go on vacation in Japan? Did you end up going to Japan yet?
It did. Yeah. So I went there. So that was like 2 years ago at this point.
Oh,
yeah.
so your first experience in Japan, you had about a year's worth of experience at that point?
Yeah, I think it was 7 months. I
Okay.
remember. Yeah, 7 months of yeah.
So at that point, like, where was your Japanese ability?
At that point, I would say it was like lower intermediate.
Yeah. What sort of things had you done at that point to prepare?
I really like. So I think at that point I was finished like Genki 2 kind of thing. And
By yourself or in a class?
by myself, yeah. I never got into like I tried to get into some Japanese classes like at my university, but never was able to. Just because a lot of my skills were like unbalanced. Like I couldn't write kanji at all, and they expected to write for me to be able to write all my kanji that I know, all the kanji I know. And because of that imbalance, they're like, if I put you in this class, you don't know how to write anything, so like you're gonna fail. If I put you in this class, you know too much kanji, so you're gonna do too well. And I was like, okay, what do I do? So I'm just gonna learn by myself. Yeah, so I just did Genki. I just did exactly what they did. So I did Genki, and I did Wanikani, so I knew a bunch of kanji from that. And then I did Hello Talk like a monster. So I just did so much Hello Talk, which helped I think the most. Honestly, just like talking to natives was the biggest thing for sure. And that's what helped me on my trip.
How long did you do the Wanikani thing for? Is that something you still do?
I don't do it now. I did it almost right after I finished like Hiragana Katakana, which I learned from like a Tofugu guy,
Sure.
who makes also Wanikani. I was like, they were like, hey, we also have Wanikani. I'm like, sure, yeah, why not? And I just did it exactly for basically 7 months until I went to Japan, and I did a little bit after there too. But the bulk of my Japanese like kanji studies was during that time, and like I managed to get like 1,100 or something, 1,200 in that time, just because I don't know. I think Wanikani is really great for like efficiently.
So what was that time span that you got to like that number of kanji, 1,100 or so?
That was 7 months.
7 months.
In the 7 months there before going to Japan, yeah. So it felt pretty efficient, and I really like the way that they teach it as well. So it worked out really well that way.
So Jordan, you did like RTK. I think you said like a dozen times.
Correct.
And then finally one time you actually got through. Like how long did that take you?
About I think it was 11 months. I think I'd stopped and started at least maybe twice. And so, but in that 11-month span, yeah.
Interesting.
What made you like not want to do it? Like those times that you kind of slowed down and everything.
I was in school, so I was about 18, 19, and so it was just going through, my programming classes and, dealing with that. It was just like, oh man, I really want to study, but like I am also trying not to fail programming 101. So let me, drop one and pick up the other, and so yeah.
That I still think, I don't know, it's because Jordan, like you said, you've been studying for like 10 years, and geez, if I counted the first time like I started studying hiragana, it'd be like just as long for me. So it's like that time span doesn't really equate to the density or the whatever you were working on. So it's always interesting to keep in mind those things other people have in balance. So I did RTK in like 6 months after I done a semester of Japanese. And it was like, I was like, okay, well, when you start out in the language, you're like, oh, this is the most difficult thing of Japanese. It turns out it's not. Like, it's the pure breadth of it is probably, at least to me, the most intimidating thing. But because after 6 months, I got through RTK, the Joyo kanji, and got through those, and then it was like, okay, well, these aren't going to be a problem for me anymore, even if my retention on them in Anki was absolutely terrible. But kids these days, they got it even easier. I don't know if you've seen like what they're doing with like the mass immersion approach with recognition RTK, and where I think it's actually, I'm not going to explain recognition RTK. It's documented out there. My wife actually did it, and she did it in the 6 months that we were in Japan, and I would say that's at a much slower pace than most people in that community are chugging through it. So it's one of those things I look back on and it's like, the shorter you can, just like hiragana and katakana, like the faster you can get through it and start using it, it seems like the better. But it is one of those things that having that fundamental recognition of those faces, those characters, seems really important in people's journeys. I don't know anybody who just hasn't done that yet. I'm sure there are, but people who just completely skip out on Wanikani RTK or anything else. I'm curious how they end up. Have you guys had an experience? Like, have you guys talked to anybody like that?
I have one buddy that I was like talking to someone. I really like Wanikani. So I just always talked about it to one of my friends, and he never got onto it. He liked the concept, but he never fully committed. And I forget exactly how he studied before. I think it was just like through whatever the textbooks gave him, kind of thing, and like thinking just he it wasn't like a separate part of the studies. It was like more of with everything, kind of thing. And he always had a lot of issues reading. Like he progressed a lot slower, right? So he was studying for many years and everything there. And the moment he got to Wanikani, I finally he went for it, kind of thing. He's been using it ever since. So I feel like he's maybe like a year or almost a year and a half in now. And he constantly tells me how like it changed everything for him, right? It really moved, like, because he can now read, I feel like 4 or 5 times the kanji than before, right? And to a level where, like, because Wanikani also introduces it with vocab, right? Where like and ones with different readings and everything, he doesn't have to, like, even now he can understand. Like before, there was no way for him to guess words, even if he knew the kanji, kind of thing. He had no like basis for that, or no practice for that, right? And that's one thing I like for Wanikani, where because they introduce so much vocab there, it gives you such a breadth of possibilities of meanings and like ways to interpret them, that it trains you in that way. So he's gotten a lot of benefit from that. So I thought that was really, really interesting to see his growth there.
Yeah, so it didn't exist when I had started. I tried it for a little while, but it was like I had already done RTK, so I had to face that question of, is there any point in trying to recognize these when you can actually just read and pick up things that way? So for me, that's still a no. I actually just posted about that kind of on Twitter recently about people say once you get to a certain point, redo RTK or something like that, and it's like I don't really need to, I don't think, at this point, but I don't know. I might default to smarter people than me on that one that have said that. So, back to what we were talking about with like your experiences with Japanese. So, what do you feel like you can do in Japanese? We'll start with that one, and then maybe talk also about what you can't do yet in Japanese.
Well, I feel like there's always a lot of stuff that we can't do in Japanese. It's kind of like, but in terms of what I guess do,
I'll just preface that also with like the reason why is because I feel like a lot of people look at this and they say, oh, he's getting good at Japanese, but it's probably useful to keep in context, like, oh well, what's the reality of it? Yeah, so please go ahead.
100%. Yeah, no, I definitely, just to preface that, like, a lot of people, I mean, it's even myself, like, you only show what you're able to do, right? You never say like, oh, I couldn't figure this out, right? And I see a lot of like really advanced learners, and I see like, oh damn, I wish I could do that kind of thing, right? But you have no context for how they learn to do that, and you don't know what they can't do, right? So I 100% agree. But
I think you're
in terms of like,
I thought your Genshin Impact video was Genshin Impact video was really good about that. Actually, it was like, oh, I know this, I don't know this, move on, that sort of thing. But anyways, please, what can you do and what can't you do? No more interruptions for me.
No, that's great. That's good. So what I can do is I think I can handle myself like interview wise and like somewhat formally now. Before that was like something that I really struggled with, but I kind of like attacked my brain until it worked. I don't know even know how to phrase that. But like, yeah, I think if I want to explain something, I will find a way to explain it. If I were to put that more plain, like it may not be the best, most fluent way, but this was my goal for like this was my macro goal, like since like 2 years ago, basically. Like one of my macro goals was just to be like, if I want to explain something, some way or another, I will find a way to explain. I will never get stuck because I used to get stuck all the time. And I just like default to English or be like kind of thing. And finding ways to like do roundabout ways, or even stuff that are like you have to make the listener think kind of thing. So that kind of one way or another, that's one thing that I guess I pride myself in there. And casually, I think I'm pretty decent, just because I've been around a bunch of friends that have kind of guided me there. Stuff I am not good at, I think, because I don't really do a lot of reading. I would say like more difficult reading. I do the reading I need to do. Like I'm still like 70% through a novel there, and that's been a great time. But I'm super slow at that still, kind of thing, right? That's not something I really focused on. So and like reading the news, for example, is I can get through it, but it takes forever, kind of thing. And there's so many words I don't know. It's just not what I focused on. So it's really, I think, for especially at like our level, a big part of it is just you really diverge in terms of your interests, and you get really good at what you know, right? Yeah. And it gets scary when you see other people who've put in their 3 years doing one thing, and like, wow, how are you playing all these crazy hard games? Like for you guys, like I don't think I could get through all the games that you guys get through, or read all the manga that you guys get through so quickly, right? But I feel like we've diverged in that way. So, right? What do you guys think?
So I mean, I've been doing it for 6 years, so it's like twice as long. I would hope I've experienced some things that you haven't, but the reality is, like, at my 4.5 years that I spent in textbooks, I mean, I look back on those like years with like a bad girlfriend, because look back is like, wow, I thought it was so good at the time, but geez, that was not a good relationship. Me and those textbooks. Like, what was it? An integrated approach to intermediate Japanese. That's the one that Jordan likes, and I still hate. Nah, like, that one I always knew was a bad girlfriend. Like, that was just bad all around. But anyways, so for me, it's like things that I still can't do is actually the goals piece that I talk about on this segment of like in the podcast so far, where it's been me and Jordan talking about that, because there are still quite a few areas where, despite 2.5 years of the immersion based stuff, like you hear in the immersion based community that people get fluent in like 1.5 years, and that's because they put in tons and tons of hours, like truly all Japanese all the time. So it's like I didn't really do that. I always had at least a couple hours a day, so usually about 3, and then that's not including Anki. And so from that time, I started to get more comfortable with listening. I still have a lot of gaps with like watching TV shows. Like, I should get the main point on most things, but like I'll still watch stuff and be like, I don't know even what they were talking about there. And some of that's I've recognized is just concentration issues as well, where it's like if you're actually actively concentrating on it, you'll understand more, but you only have a limited amount of that every day. So there's that. And then, but that's also why I've been actively tackling. So you mentioned reading. It's like, this is something Jordan and I have mentioned quite a few times too. It's like neither of us are very drawn into books with pure words. We're all about the pictures. And so like manga, no problem. I would consider myself fluent in manga. However, when it comes to like actual novels, like I didn't start reading those seriously. I had read a handful, but I didn't start reading them seriously until I built it into my schedule in May. And then from there, since then I've doubled my reading speed. So that's pretty cool. But it took that concentrated time doing it. Jordan, what about you? Like where are you at? What would you say are your gaps?
So gaps. Definitely, I think sometimes podcasts can be my gaps. So when there's multiple speakers, I'll try to focus in. I can get the general idea, but I definitely can tell that there's some areas where I'm like, whoa, I wasn't focusing and I completely missed that. And the news for sure. I feel like I try not to stay in the news even in English. I get in.
I don't
and
even
get
watch
out
the
or,
news. It's like that's not even on my
Same.
radar.
Same.
I really don't care.
Yeah. And so but then like you said, manga definitely. I feel like I can sit down and read a manga like with a good story. And I'm in there. And video games are good. And most some shows, depending on the show, it's like I can get it, but. Yeah, I think your podcasts are hard, and I've started to like integrate that into like work that in because I know that is a gap and try to close it up as much as I can.
Same. Actually, that's interesting because I haven't played a whole lot of games in Japanese. I've probably played like 10, like all the way through. And so this week came out Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, right? And I expected that game to be absolutely brutal from the article our guest Creative Kofi posted from Famitsu on that game. And just reading through that, I was like, oh gosh, there's so many obscure words in this. However, I'm playing through the game and I streamed it, I think last night. And it was like I was translating it. So I'm surprised that I was actually able to handle that. So there are still areas where I expect myself not to be able to do something. And I've been surprising myself lately, but that's because I've been putting in a lot of hours lately. So I guess I would ask you, Alex, as far as like native content, like what sort of content have you made it through? Like you're working through a novel now. That's important to get the reading up. Have you read through any like manga? Is that something that even appeals to you? Like what sort of things are you going through?
I haven't read ever a manga, English or Japanese.
You're missing out, dude. You're missing out.
I know. I want to get into it. It's just kind of I've always had so many other priorities and I've never got like completely committed, right? I feel like maybe once I finally land in Japan, the availability will kind of get to me, and then I'll take a stab on my commuter or something like that, Or I've been using Kindle.
Yeah, Jordan. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Book offs, like these book offs are the used bookstores in Japan where you can get manga for like 100 yen, so less than a US dollar, and it's just like they have so many things. I literally have brought back hundreds of pounds of manga from Japan, so like, and it's all from Book Off. Yeah, so
okay, I know.
I have planned out full vacations in Japan around where the Book Off locations are.
Like a book off tour?
Yes, it was exactly that. Yeah, Book Off of the Kansai region. Yes.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely want to get into it. There are a lot of for example, like I watched all of JoJo, for example.
Okay.
Like I really enjoyed JoJo, but it only goes so far, and then the rest are just in manga. And I have no idea when the rest are going to actually be released in anime form, right? So because of that, I'd want to.
Have you spent a lot of time like watching like Japanese content? Do you do much of that, or are you pretty much just hanging out with Japanese people for your native content?
I do try to watch. I enjoy watching a lot more. Mostly because I don't know if it comes from like when I first started my listening was like abysmal. Mostly because I did mostly like Hello Talk, but that was not meeting people, it's just actually talking, like chatting with them, right? Stuff like that. Like my listening was really, really bad. So maybe that's why I kind of like started just watching everything I could. May it be YouTube or like I really, really enjoyed Terrace House, for example. like I've rewatched a lot of them so many times just because like I get so much value out of it in terms of like casual speech, especially.
What's your favorite? Which one?
That's so hard, man. I really like the one that not a lot of people like, which is Hawaii.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
That one, the Hawaii one's great. There's also like it's really good for like if for more beginner Japanese speakers as well. I think because it's in Hawaii, there's some English sprinkled throughout because there's some people there's a Japanese learner in there, and then she was I think like before N2 level, between N2 and N3 level.
Okay.
So it wasn't even like crazy like advanced, right?
Mhm.
When I was first watching it, I was like, oh my god, she's fluent, right? And now like kind of going back and looking at how like she spoke and everything there, I'm like it's really cool to like kind of see how my interpretation changes. I can like see like it that's really interesting there. So but they sometimes speak English there because they just like if they get in a fight, like there's no way N4 me could have gone to a fight in Japanese. Like, I'm gonna switch to English, right? Stuff like that. I mean, it's really interesting there, but yeah, and I'll watch the anime when I can. I wouldn't say I'm super. I wouldn't say I'm a super deep weeb, but but I have my moments, I guess. Yeah.
Got you. Cool.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, as for those gaps that you mentioned, like, are you doing anything now, or do you have any plans to address areas where I know we talked about Keigo, like any other areas that you want to address that you think you need to improve in your Japanese?
For sure, yeah. I mean, for the speaking side, which I'm trying to put a big focus on now, especially since I might be there, and like, yeah, like communicating with people at work, I am a bit terrified in case I can't say what I want to say, especially in Keigo. So I've been doing like Japanese shadowing a lot. Recently, I haven't done much this week because it's been a bit of a nutty week with visa stuff, but I've been trying to do that as much as possible, and it's already helped.
Do you feel like that's been helping? Like, how often do you do it?
I try to do at least like once a day. For it usually stays under an hour, kind of thing. But basically, just like repeating the same thing over and over again.
So like repeating the several lessons. I have it, but I haven't really used it. But
yeah, so like I have a couple like. So what's great about the book that I got, and I'm sure like I feel like everyone uses that one.
I own that one, yeah.
You don't know? Okay, yeah, I have it like literally. I was just looking at it. I was like, maybe I should bring it up. I have it like right here. So then, there. And it's just skipped right to the section that's like workplace, like Kegel, talking to your boss or talking to people under you, I guess. Kind of speech, and I've been doing a lot of that now, basically. And it's really helped just in terms of I gotten a couple of insights in terms of how I can say things quicker. In terms of like how I should be positioning my mouth to be able to say something the same speed that they're saying it, kind of thing. Like those more like minute things where like how are they moving their mouth so fast, kind of thing. And that's when I realized their mouth is just always within this region. They never like kind of thing, so they can like quickly like say sounds because they never move their mouth. That's actually the opposite, right?
Have you looked into like going to Japan, trying to sound natural, that sort of stuff? Have you looked into stuff like Dogen's like pitch accent course, or does that sort of stuff appeal to you at all?
I've always been on the edge of subscribing to that. I've been, I love Dogen's stuff, and I'm always so close to getting into it, but like I know if I want to go into it, I'm gonna have to spend like a lot of time and like properly delve in it. So once I do finally make the plunge, I'm gonna go ham on that. But for now, I've been just trying to at least get like some pitch accent level stuff. Like I just know like I'm including like some pitch accent stuff into my like Anki, for example. But
I had actually, I was just watching a video where it's actually Dogen and Matt vs. Japan making a study plan for long-term Japanese that I hadn't seen, and I think it's on Dogen's Patreon, and it was quite good because so I've had mixed feelings about things like pitch accent, but they made the point that, you know, if you're going to be going to Japan, you're outputting before you're fluent, it might make sense to be, you know, diving into that pitch accent stuff so that you're less likely to be making mistakes and committing to those mistakes. Like, that's the whole idea. Are you familiar with like Matt versus Japan's like MIA approach or AJAT, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I follow their stuff, his stuff, and I never actually like do anything related to that. I never kind of committed to it, but I like seeing what people think about it and like how people are using it to I kind of steal a little stuff from there where I can.
Where I'm going with that is they actually, one of the things they have is at least in like the AJAT side of things, that you actually, in order to make the fewest amount of mistakes as possible, you just don't output at all with your language until you're fluent, which for some people is practical. For me and you, it's not really, because we, you know, going to Japan, like it's certainly not worth passing up an opportunity like that to you know, not speak Japanese or waiting until you're fluent or something like that. So so it was interesting to hear that perspective though of just trying to make sure you have a understanding of that phonetic system before you actually do more output. But that's something I haven't committed to yet either. It's also something I'm not too worried about. But
I do think to some degree, and my pitch accent is definitely not too good, I feel. But like general accent wise, just because what I did when I first started like actually hanging out like in person with like Japanese people is I just copied everything they did, right? Like they said a phrase and I'm going to say it exactly the way they said it in the next 5 minutes, kind of thing, consciously.
Nice.
You know, like I'm going to go and be drinking with some friends. They said a phrase, whatever. Maybe I'm like at a little event or something. I'm going to go to those people over there and try to say that exact same thing to them, kind of thing, right? Stuff like that, like there. Through that, I feel like to some degree, if I see a word, I'll be able to somehow guess how the intonation will go. Even if it's a like irregular one, for some reason, I'll sometimes be able to guess it. Just because I feel like I've heard people just say, like, talking so much around me, kind of thing. So I think that's also important, rather than like full on book studying every like pattern and every like irregularity, like building up that native intuition is also somewhat important. Not to say I have a native intuition whatsoever, but like building it up to some degree.
Yeah,
you know?
like naturally kind of, you know,
it's more fun for
knowing
me that
something.
way too, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so much more fun to like get something right, but like you didn't actually study it, or like you heard it that one time and then your brain for some reason took that and then you output it like 2 months later, you're like, wait a second, kind of thing. That's where I get a lot of value, just like personal value from, right?
Yeah, so shadowing's kind of interesting because I did that early on, like probably in my first year, because everyone says like, oh, this is how you sound natural and that sort of thing.
Right.
And then where I've kind of ended up with it is that, until you get to a certain high enough point, like you don't even know what Japanese sounds like. So it doesn't, at least to me right now, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense to start that at the beginning. But once you're ready to start outputting, like it does make sense to start targeting your output. I've heard different ways of doing it. Like originally, like I said, I've used that book. That book actually, I believe the green covered one is the one I was looking at early on.
Oh yeah,
and
that's I think the beginner intermediate.
I think so.
Right?
That sounds about
yeah.
right. Yeah. And they say like you should be actually doing it for, I forget the exact time frame, but it's like a couple weeks for a single type until like you said, it becomes like a natural thing that you're outputting. And then I've heard from like the immersion based community that like when you're doing shadowing, just like turn on YouTube and just try to shadow after what they're saying and just do like a lot of that. So that's interesting that I've heard, you know, there are different approaches for this sort of thing. One seems obviously very targeted, and I think like with what you're saying, like if you have to use these phrases at a company or something, it makes sense to target what you're actually doing. Like I said, I memorize speeches and that sort of stuff before. Like you don't want to be winging that sort of thing or relying on your native intuition that you're building up like over all these years, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I had like for work a couple months ago, we had a presentation, like a self-introduction presentation we had to do with all the new employees kind of thing. It was all over Zoom. And then for that, it had to be a 5 to 10 minute PowerPoint presentation about yourself, right?
Nice.
Oh, whoa.
Very fun.
So then I heard about that, right? And it was like, it was in 2 months, right? They told, and I was like, dope. I'm gonna nail this presentation, right? So that next 2 months, all I did, I lived, breathed doing this presentation, right? Like practicing italki every day, every week. I'd like come back. All right, I did all these slides. These are the stuff this is my script that I planned for these slides. What do you think? And we like went over it over and over, right? Like in the shower, I was saying my like 10-minute presentation twice, kind of thing, you know, stuff like that, right? So I was like going over it. And when I went to it, like it like I didn't even have to think, right? It was so easy to do. Beautiful feeling. And like all the phrases, because I was talking about myself, I still use now, right? Like all those phrases I can immediately use whenever, because I talked about what I like, why I study Japanese and stuff about studying Japanese, like where I worked. Like everything is applicable and I can use still now. Crazy.
But
can you speak more? So definitely, can you speak more on the italki thing? Because I feel like a lot of like me myself, like I haven't used it a lot, or even like the Hello Talk, you know. And it seems like you're using like a lot of things you're immersing with. So Terrace House and things like that is more for like conversational, which I think is fantastic because I feel like I'm slowly getting to where it's just like, oh, like I'm contacting old friends again and wanting to talk. And I'm like, oh wow, I realized that like my speaking is not where it should be. So how did you approach like both like Hello Talk and like italki? What did you look for when you were looking for a tutor? You know, how did you find your specific one?
Sorry, I think
you're back.
Cut out.
You're back.
Cut
Yeah.
there.
For
I'm back.
for 1 second.
My bad. Yeah. So my bad.
Did you get the question?
I got the most of it. The last like 5 seconds I didn't get. If you can repeat that part.
Yeah. So just like, what was your like approach on the Hello Talk? Like, how did you meet people on there? I know people I've heard good and bad, you know, and then with the italki, it's just like, how did you find that's your person? Like, did you go through a lot of people? Did you just randomly pick one?
Yeah. So I'll start real quick with italki just because the first thing on my mind. I've used a lot of different teachers, and I've always just targeted ones in my budget. Right, I didn't want to I wanted to do this a regular thing. I can't afford getting like $20 every week, even right. Like so, I like straight up just went with one of the cheapest people I could get, and I like just tried a bunch of them until one of them I felt could be like a friend kind of level, right?
Okay.
So then I was using them a lot, and like one thing I wanted was never using English, for example, even when explaining something. That was really important for me.
Did you have to specifically tell them? Sorry.
Yes, yeah. I told them specifically like, when possible, please don't use English, kind of thing.
Okay.
And every word that's new or seems new to me, kind of thing. Like, can you write it down so I can like, you know, put it in my Anki later, kind of thing. Even though I'm like, every word I don't know, I'm immediately searching up, right? During the lesson. But anyway, so it's actually funny. The person I'm using now, I like first booked him the morning of my N2 test.
Whoa.
Because the way of I wanted to warm up was I like booked him before my N2 test. Talked to him for an hour, and then I went on the bus to go, right? Beautiful. It was like, I think that was one of my like biggest big brain moves.
That's
like,
a big brain move. Yeah.
It was, it just like, and then on the way I didn't want my Anki for the day, right? So like I woke up early, was like feeling refreshed, and I did that. And like ever since then, like I asked them like afterwards, I was like, oh, this was good, but like, are you like, what do you know about like Japanese interviews? Like, have you done a lot yourself, kind of thing? And like, I wanted to know about his history there, and like he was very willing to help me on that. So then I started interview practice immediately after N2 kind of thing, or soon after N2. Stuff like that. But like really being clear with my teacher was for sure the thing. Like I like tell me, hey, like I don't know if I'm going to get you next time because I need these things to be satisfied, kind of thing. A bit bluntly, but like I needed to like I felt like it was a time crisis, even though it wasn't.
No, yeah, it makes sense.
But that helped a lot, right? And then they knew how to better help me.
I commend you for doing that and actually like stopping them, like if they're not the right person, because I also did italki for like 3 years, and I did like a gauntlet of different tutors at the beginning just to find one, and then I kept her for a very long time. She's very nice, liked her a lot, but eventually what I found was after 2 years speaking with this person, we knew each other quite well, first off. So she knew all of my weaknesses in Japanese, and she had become used to them, like baby talk or something like that. So I would definitely recommend, if anyone's using italki, like for sure, like use natives for very targeted things. Like I think that's another place where you did things right. Like you said, you used specifically for like crafting like a resume, interview practice, those sorts of things that like you could get a friend to help you, or you could get like a language exchange person, and then you'd have to speak to them in English or something like that. But like the benefit of italki is you can just pay them and be done. So it's like that's the advantage I see. Whereas when I was doing tutoring, it was like, oh well, this is speaking practice, so that's good. But then I'm going to also ask them every time about all the different grammar points that I didn't understand in this textbook. And then I'm just going to go through each question that I had in a textbook and say, hey, what's the difference between this word and that word? When those are things that your immersion should be doing for you, not somebody should be explaining to you. Because this is like music theory. Like if anybody plays an instrument, like you can memorize all the textbook stuff about music theory you want, but when you have to play jazz, like you got to rely on the feeling, right? Like the soul of it, and that's only going to come from you putting in the hours, actually using the real tool. So that's just one piece that I would say. Yes, italki's cool, but be careful. And I would also say don't stick with the same person for too long. I think it's really good what you're talking about, like switching it up, or at least like rotating them. If I did it again, I would not do it the same way.
100% agree. Jordan, what do you how are you currently using italki then, and what's your kind of goals with it then?
I haven't. So I've never used italki before. Okay. But I just wanted to sign up and like get your opinion on it. And then I've used shadowing, so I feel like it has helped for sure, but I haven't done it in a long time. But I think my goal is to get better at speaking, to be honest. Be able to express myself. Who knows? Maybe do some recordings in Japanese and put it on YouTube. We'll see. Sure. No promises. But
I'd be so down to see that.
Yeah. That's like the goal, I guess, is to try to like because I feel like if the coronavirus wasn't here, I feel like I would be at a bar with a Japanese friend or using Japanese, and I kind of want to like get back into that. So. Yeah,
100%.
we have seen the Banana Man speaking Japanese before, so I mean, if we could get some more of that, you got to check out Jordan's YouTube channel, man. you got to watch these videos to the end. Like,
how have I missed this video?
We get Kingdom Hearts socks in your videos, Alex, and then we get the Banana Man in Jordan's.
All that. All right. I'm gonna be scouring the internet for this Banana Man.
So speaking about like into and prepping for that, it's very interesting to me that I've had this conversation with a lot of textbook learners, and they all seem to plateau right around that N2 level. And somehow, despite you saying you're not super into manga. You've done a lot of stuff with actual natives, and that seems to be the distinguishing bit of how you
breaking up again.
Let me try this again. So it seems like the distinguishing piece of your studies so far has been like actually working with like your friends, like meetups, that sort of thing. What other things did you do to prepare for the N2? I'm particularly interested in the reading section because that seems to be a part that trips people up a lot. And like you said, you're 70% through a novel. You haven't done like a lot with manga. How did you prepare for that?
Reading was rough to start off. The N2 reading was definitely hard, but not impossible. Like I knew that was like what was important was like before going into N2, like I had a lot of time to prepare. Maybe not a lot of time. I had like 4 or 5 months of like targeted study that I could handle, kind of thing. And because I already had the resolve to work in Japan at that point, I was like ready to put in like all my extra time into that, right? But so I knew my reading it was going to be an issue, like quickly reading, not even just read, like quickly reading and understanding and getting to the point. That was what I knew was I had an issue with. And then also listening was also something I like listening, but N2 listening specifically, like what they're trying to like trick you with. That's what I was having trouble with. So what I focused on reading actually was not reading quickly, but reading smartly for JLPT specifically, as in like learning the little tricks, because I knew I could not become a speed reader and know all the vocab in 5 months even, right? Like I'd rather do that more efficiently. So I drilled vocab like I always did, but then I focused on like reading the first paragraph and the last paragraph, getting an idea. If I don't have it, then I can read the first sentence of every inner paragraph. I still don't know what's going on. Like doing that kind of like figuring out a nice flow for that was key for me in reading. And then actually applying that in the test was what got me to finish every question at least, kind of thing.
Did you take a lot of practice tests?
I did. So I used a textbook for this, which was Soul Matome. And 2 and they have a lot of they just have so many like reading passages there, so I didn't do any actual tests. I just did like a lot of passages like this whenever possible. And that helped a lot there. And same idea for listening. I actually did a lot of, for listening I didn't use Soul Matome too much. I used more like on YouTube and to practice listening there. And like I would do like one or I just do one question, listen to it, try to do all the questions that they had there, and then afterwards, after like I probably failed that one, I just learned every word and every sentence to a T there and understand why I didn't understand it, like what part of that word tripped me up and why, kind of thing. And just seeing, there's a lot of self-reflection, honestly. Like what can I do, what can't I do, how can I fix it quickly so I can just get this like shikaku, what is it? Paper. I don't know.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, just so I can get to like a minimum JLPT N2 level for job hunting later, kind of thing. But
with the job hunting, did it prevent you from like applying to certain jobs without it? Like, is it easier with it? I'm assuming it's easier with it. That's kind of like my approach.
Honestly, I got rejected immediately from so many companies because I didn't have N1. So
really, that's interesting.
Most companies, I would say, so when I was doing job hunting, I applied to total maybe like, I didn't count, but I'd say probably like 30, 40.
That's good to know that number,
companies.
Like to put that into perspective for people, right? They hear about the success, but most of them probably don't think about writing, sending out 40 resumes.
Yeah, I mean, luckily because it was all online and it had to be online, I didn't have to rewrite them all, right? Which is wonderful because I know you have to do that. Or a lot of Japanese people have to do that, right, for everything, which is great. I didn't have to do that, but it took a lot of just applications there, and most of them were like, "Hey," without even talking to me in person, right? It was mostly just like they look at my resume and my like work experience document, and they were like, which was like properly done with like all my Japanese friends helped me like get that to a T kind of thing. And but even then they saw N2 and immediately were like, we don't think we can like trust you with like the more important tasks kind of thing. So like please reapply or something if you when you have N1 or something. And that's what surprised me a lot because I was like so ready for N2 to like open up everything, but
it's supposed to be business level proficiency, right? Like that's what it's marketed as.
Yeah.
So that you're right, that is surprising.
I think it was really surprising. I have a feeling it has to do with just the game industry to some degree. Being like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the game industry is pretty like it's so small and it's so like secluded, like and they have such like a strong will to work. I feel if that makes any sense. Like they really, really, really value like getting the best quality. So because of that, especially the bigger companies I applied to, they were like, which are almost all Japanese, right? They were like, okay, they're already like 10 Japanese applicants, kind of thing. We're just gonna go with them, I think. I'm not sure though, because they never told me the actual reason, like why they wouldn't. So I wouldn't know, but that's just my the thing that helps me sleep at night.
So am I hearing that right? Like you think it was because you didn't have N1, or did they actually confirm what it was?
Oh, they told me.
Gotcha.
They told me because I didn't have N1.
Most
of them told me because of N1.
And then for your actual resume, like how long have you been in the game industry? Like you graduated like how long ago, and how long have you been working?
So I graduated this year in I guess officially I finished school in April.
Oh, okay.
I guess.
So really recently.
Yeah. Okay. But I had like when I was working, I had that 1.5 year internship. That was basically like a full-time job there, and because I was there for so long, I was an intern, but it wasn't really an internship, if that makes sense. Like I was like just straight up working contract there.
Gotcha.
Like, full time. And that was for a bigger game company, and then I went to the same company, and now I'm up to now I'm still there right now. So that's given me a lot of experience there. So I had like a good amount of experience coming in. I do think to some degree the label of being a new grad, even if my experience wasn't new grad level, is what didn't help as well from the Japanese.
I would expect that.
Like even if I told them, even if I like told them I have AAA experience for 2 years here, they don't care if you're graduating this year. You know what I mean? Like they don't care what experience you have. Is if you're a new grad still, you're still in the same category. Wow. So that was an interesting thing that I didn't know about, and no one really talks about. But
I'm glad you're bringing it up. Are you moving within your same company to the Japanese side, or is it a completely separate?
This one's a separate company. I fortunately was able to like find a company that's a bit newer and like more accepting and like willing to at least interview, right? Which I really appreciated. And once I was there, I do think with the way I prepared for the interview, because I prepared a lot for the speaking was more than what an N2 speaking would normally be, because I prepared so much. But because it's so targeted too, right? I knew what they're gonna ask me. And there's only so many things they can ask me, and I only have to be able to say so many things, right? So it was really easier than I thought to target that studying.
So you said you knew a lot of the stuff they were going to ask you. Was that from your italki experience, or just from friends, or
just from a lot of interviews in the past, and like like because at that if doing English interviews and Japanese interviews, they're gonna ask the same sort of questions, right? May it be like the basic ones of why did you apply, right? A lot of the interviews are gonna have those like kind of questions, so you can easily. And I had a document of like I don't know how many pages of just endless like possible question, possible answer, possible question, possible answer snippet, like 5 answer snippets, and all of them I made sure to know to then be able to piece together later. Like I was talking about the puzzle analogy earlier. So I kind of looked at it that way, like a puzzle game, and I knew all the separate answers, and then I just had to be prepared for whatever type of question they'd ask, which I probably already heard. And only one time I was asked a question I'd never heard before, and this was when for the current company the current company I'm at. The second interview was with 8 engineers at the same time over Skype. It was absolutely insane. It was insane. So, but the whole point of it was they wanted as many people as they can to fit into a call to make sure it was a culture fit within engineers, right?
Interesting.
And I was like, interesting, right? So I entered, right? And I was like, okay. And then, I mean, everyone was pretty cool, and they just like kind of took turns and like asked me questions of like whatever they wanted to know.
That sounds intimidating, honestly. Like,
it was terrifying. It was terrifying. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Was it like whiteboarding questions?
Like, heck, that would be intimidating in English. Like,
yeah, it was. I mean, any sort of like fear you have in interviewing in English gets like times 10 when you do it in Japanese.
Naturally.
I feel.
Not surprised.
So that was a good time. But surprisingly, as a side note, before I get to the story, that for whiteboarding questions, never. They never asked a single like technical question for any of the interviews I did. They always just wanted to know about like my story and technical, like what kind of problems I solved, and like specific points that apply to their technology stack. Like, can you expand on this tool you made in Python, because we use Python here, kind of thing, right? And being able to properly explain that. They were more interested in that than actual technical questions. Yeah. Which I don't know if that's true for everything. Kanji, maybe you can expand on that.
It's rare. It's like to have no like, and I'm speaking from English experience because I didn't get interviewed. For my Japanese company, that's again another commendable thing that you've done, is actually going through the interview process. I luckily had a foot in the door to my sister company.
Nice.
All about who you know, and just worked out for me.
It is.
But anyways, no technical interview. That is how I got my current job that I've been at for like 6 years. They didn't do like any specific whiteboarding questions, but I would say actually, yeah. And then I got an internship the same way as well. They didn't do any technical questions. Then I've also done like, I've interviewed at dozens of places before, and most of them do. So definitely not standard.
Yeah.
Is that what you were checking on in me? If that part is standard, or was there something else you?
I mean, so in terms of like, especially in Japan, I'm curious because I'm not 100% sure.
I don't
from
know.
My experience, it seems like none of them got close to asking me technical like whiteboard questions. Technical questions they did, in terms of like, explain what you did for this tool or in this task, but never. One thing I did get like sent a quiz, a knowledge quiz, which asked me like elementary like math, like and like, I had there were some questions I couldn't even answer. They were like, because I don't do rendering programming, for example, and for games, and they had said, okay, label this chart with all the rendering steps in the shader or something like that. I'm like, I don't know, so I just left it blank and they didn't care. But stuff like expand this like geometric series or something, like some math questions there, which are pretty logical, I think. Even if you look at it, it's like it makes sense. And like some like Python coding, which was like, implement bubble sort or something like that.
And it was take home. That's interesting.
Yeah, take home, and that was the most, and only for this one company that I'm currently at. They did that. The rest.
How many interviews? Like, so you said you put out 30, 40 resumes. Like, how many people did you actually interview with through that process?
So at my current company, I did 3 interviews until I got the offer. For another company, I did 3 interviews and I got an offer.
So I mean, like, in like, how many companies did you interview with? Like, you said
total interview.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I see. I'd say I got like 4 companies.
Okay.
And that's it.
And that's where I was going with that, because you sent out 40 and you get 4 callbacks basically.
And I think 4 was lucky. Like I wouldn't even like. I think that's still lucky. I got those, right. I know it's really it's like a shot in the dark sometimes, especially when you don't have a connection.
Exactly. That's the kind of amazing part about your story so far.
Yeah, I got lucky with those. I think maybe the timing or something, or just who saw it. But
I think it
I'm
was
happy.
you zoned in on it. I feel like you saw that there were things that there were gaps and areas you needed to address, and there were certain parts that, like you said, you can't learn all this in a short amount of time. But it's like you learned what you could, where you could, and you went for it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, like I tried to plan way ahead, right? Like I knew the steps I needed to take, and I just did those steps, right? But that's the whole thing, going back to why having a goal is important, right? Like, and those micro goals are probably more important than a macro goal sometimes, right? Like if you have that goal of working in Japan, that means nothing if you don't know how you're gonna get there, right?
Yeah.
So stuff like that really helped me. But okay, what was I saying before? The 8-person interview. The one question that mixed me up was I was doing this 8-person interview, and midway through, there was one person that was missing that they mentioned, right? Randomly, this like guy comes from like the side of this like meeting. This meeting, so there were like 3 or 4 of them in the same meeting room. The rest were all remote. This random person comes up. He comes, sits down, boom, takes the laptop, like switches it only to him, right? He's on the way side, right? And he's like, "So, Alex, do you have a girlfriend?" And immediately, I was like, wait, let me check my answers. I don't know what to say.
Check your answers.
I was like, wait, this wasn't in the manual, you know? It got me so out. And after that, he started asking me more questions that had nothing to do with any of them. I feel like he really wanted to see me squirm. I don't know. It was great.
Yeah.
But he's like, "Yeah, do you have a girlfriend?" Like, "Oh, like, what else did he ask? Like, oh, like, do you like Japanese girls? Oh, do you like, you just ask all these random questions that will, like, how do you even answer to, right?
I mean, yes or no,
right? Like, I guess so. You're right. But it was like, it completely threw me off guard. And luckily I was able to like make it jokingly, like whatever, and like act. I mean, I was surprised, but act surprised to like a good degree, and like try to figure out my way about it. So it worked out fine, but just still goes to show you, like, never know what's gonna pop up, right?
Yeah.
So this is what actually I was talking to my wife about this, about, you know, my situation was very different from someone like yours, where just kind of going in blind, like shooting in the dark, hoping to get people to come back. It's, like I said, much more commendable.
No, I think it's all the same path. It's like
it's impressive. Like, but my question here is, what is it that Japanese companies think that they will get from you? Like, why would they go out of their way, like you said, to go for somebody that, you know, isn't part of the circle?
So I'm gonna give a quick my favorite reason for this. Okay, there's only one reason I think anyone would ever hire a foreign programmer, and that is to read Stack Overflow questions.
I believe it.
That's why. That's the only reason, I think, and it's enough of a reason for them to hire you, I think.
So this is something that's come up in the company meetings that we've had with our sister company. The Japanese one is that, yeah, like it takes time for these Japanese concepts like microservices or clean code, like those sorts of sorts of things take time to actually make their way over to Japan and what those are, because a lot of the thinking on that comes from America, honestly, in these English speaking countries.
Okay.
I guess so, yeah.
And this is what they told me. So it's like they said, like, we wait for this stuff to come over from big names like Martin Fowler and those sorts of people that have, like, system level thinking, and eventually it gets over here, but it takes a while for that to get translated into Japanese. And then, just like any ideas, it's like, oh, is this just a trend? Is this something that we're going to actually stick with? So that has been something interesting to see. So I'm not too surprised by your answer, because I almost believe it. Almost.
I think it's pretty. I mean, I said it jokingly, but I kind of very high key, low key, high key. Believe in it. But it is a big thing. Like talking to some programmers, like they spend a lot longer trying to figure out a problem if there's nothing on Stack Overflow that they can read, right? But for us, it's almost instant, right?
I never even thought of that. Like that's so nuts. Like
it's huge. I swear,
like,
it's huge.
I'm like, whoa, like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
So I will say, doing it over there, like actually programming over there, it was so when I went over there, I definitely was in the mindset of no English allowed, all Japanese all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and so naturally I wanted to be like searching out questions in Japanese, and I would get Japanese Stack Overflow answers, but there's not as many of them, and the content is harder to parse. So when you're actually trying to solve a problem, it becomes much more frustrating doing it in that second language, especially if the second language doesn't, as we were talking about, doesn't have as much content. Any resources you're using in Japanese with programming right now?
That's a good one.
So one thing I really like using currently, because I do some web dev as well, is when I have the time, I go and use the Mozilla Japanese docs.
Oh,
because Mozilla has everything translated.
Yeah.
Mozilla has incredible documentation generally in English, but all of them are translated, right? And I just take my time and go through one concept that I like there, like whatever random syntax that I like in JavaScript. How do they like even translate this? I have no clue. What's the word for this, right? And it tends to just usually be like a pretty literal translation that I find pretty funny. But like seeing exactly like already understanding the concept and just reading through it, maybe something I don't understand, but like I just have the extra time. I have an extra 5 minutes. Maybe I'll like read through the description of it and see if it makes sense to me. Because there's always an English one if I need to get this task done, kind of thing. I've been doing that a lot, and that's been helping me. Just like how do I say I'm setting a variable, right? I have no idea, so I'm gonna go through the variables beginner Mozilla guide, and it'll tell me, right? So I've been doing that. Outside of that, I found like one YouTuber that does some Python stuff. And I'm pretty familiar with Python, so like watching his stuff has been like pretty useful there when I have free time.
Have you heard of KanjiEater?
Those are the main stuff I'd say. Yeah.
It's like QIITA, KanjiEater. So like you heard something.
No.
So that's like the equivalent of like Medium over here in the States, where like they'll just write blog articles, and it has an article on everything in Japanese. It is a Japanese website. It's lots of content about specific technologies that you can find. And it has that was the best resource I had for preparing for any sort of the Japanese technical conversations I was having, which I will say I have not been doing that for 6 months, and I've forgotten it all. But that's okay. When I need it, I'll go back to KanjiEater and start using it again. But that's a really good resource for anybody who wants to do programming, because I actually brought that up right away to them. They were talking to me about Japanese. What are you doing with Japanese? I'm like, well, I read a lot of KanjiEater articles, and they were like, oh, all Japanese programmers know of KanjiEater. Like,
really?
Yeah. So
what's the actual like K
QIITA?
Oh, QIITA.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. I'm gonna go through this later.
Check that one out.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. There's also like I found a dictionary way back. That's just a dictionary of all like programming terms in Japanese.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yep.
That one I think pops up if you search.
Or at least I have one that's like that.
Enough words. Yeah, that one's been wonderful. I random times in a day I'll like run into something and be like, how do I say this in Japanese? Like, how do I say binary tree in Japanese? So I'll just search that up, like, and I'll just have that in the back of my pocket and never use it probably. But stuff like that. I think I like. I'm a stickler for like indentation in code. So,
I mean,
like,
being in Python naturally, right?
In Python, I love Python. You know how it be. But I was like, how do I even talk about indentation? I don't even know the word for indentation. So I just like read a Quora article, actually, that was in Japanese, that someone asked about like, what is the best style to use in C# or something. And of course, there's always someone that has like a like essay history essay worthy Quora answer, and this one was all in Japanese, and I was like, I'm gonna read the hell out of this, and I'm gonna learn every word in here. And I learned so much. Like I didn't know how to say like curly bracket or square bracket or any like little stuff like that. I never thought about learning. Like so useful. So I just like spent my time there. And
so did you put all of those vocabs or those vocab words in Anki? Like
immediately,
I know.
yeah.
I know you talked about it on your most recent video. You said Anki, really helped you, take your Japanese to the next level.
Yeah.
So like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like you said you do straight vocab. So I typically will have like a sentence, like a whole sentence, and then try to pick it up. But you do vocab. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I don't feel like I don't. Yeah, because when I started, I just made a custom deck and I just kept adding to it. I didn't want to have another deck like
Right.
an already pre-made one, because I really like targeting my studying. So that's why I was like, what I experienced, I want to be able to then re-experience it and know it all, if that makes sense. That's kind of that's probably the basis of all my studying, honestly. If I ever felt bad when I was talking to someone, I will never feel bad ever again. It's like a defense mechanism. It's great. But
Right.
teaching that, right? Like I just wanted to. I think for me, the quickest thing at this point I can learn words pretty quickly. Like I've still been keeping up with 20 words a day, which has been great. It's really added up over time. But because I keep doing these 20 words a day, like it helps me that I can quickly, like, it's a lot easier to remember the words now. Just I see a new word and it just sticks a lot better, and that's helped a lot. But and I'm not going for like a credible. I usually go for mediocrity over perfection anytime, any day of the week, because I will eventually get it better. And I think that has mixed reviews, but like I just want to be able to passively, at the minimum, know all those words. And if someone said, I don't need to actually be able to say it or not, like be able to think of it. But if someone actually says it, I'll know. I'll be able to quit. I'll be able to know what they said, maybe a split second quicker, and then not get caught up on that, and then really continue the conversation. Stuff like that, like little stuff like that, I try to focus on.
Right.
And also, I do like double-sided cards. One's English, one's Japanese. Like I don't do all Japanese.
Okay.
And that's helped me a lot, actually.
Wow. Yeah, I've never done that one.
So that's helped me because, and I'll search it up obviously in Japanese if I need to know the nuances and everything, or like it's just like I know 10 words that mean equipment. What is this one kind of thing? I'll go and search it up. But like, otherwise, you can usually look at all the synonyms or like equivalent words and create an image in your mind that include all of them, right? Like Genki isn't healthy. It isn't like lively. It's kind of like a mix of all those together. But so I wouldn't only look at one word, I look at a mix of it and try to build that image in my mind, if that makes sense. And that's how I use the English part. I don't actually just take it like I'm always saying healthy.
Right. Okay.
So
that's kind of my fault. I kind of talked about that, but like that's kind of my philosophy.
Do you have any plans to like transition that into something monolingual, or do you think you'll always do this sort of bilingual approach?
I currently don't have any plan for going monolingual. One like big thing that I like by going bilingual there was when I talk to my Japanese friends, I can tell them what the English word for something is. I really like that. Personally.
That's fair. Yeah.
I really enjoy like just being able to like be able to somehow relate it in English and help them there. That isn't for my own like help. Isn't for my own needs though. So I feel like there's some loss there maybe, but I do get a lot of like pleasure out of that. So I kind of keep it there. And my brain's kind of accustomed to it, so it's gonna be hard to switch otherwise. And like I'm pretty efficient with that now, so that's kind of my own. I don't think a lot of people would agree with it, but
yeah.
Do you do audio on the card?
Go ahead, Jordan.
Audio on your cards in Japanese or not really?
No. I usually rapid fire them pretty quickly. I don't look at a card for my average time for a card is probably like 3 seconds at max, kind of thing. Like I'm
Got it.
usually just going. Because I'm going for mediocrity, not perfection. Again, right? I'm just trying to
Fair.
get them into as many things in my brain, and then.
What
But there is
sticks
a lot
what
of
sticks.
yeah. I don't. I'm not a big perfectionist that way. That's I think had some positive effect on me, but
from what I've heard from people more experienced than me, like my concern with like not making so I was also at a point right about when I was plateauing at like the N3 level, couldn't figure out N2. I started looking into the monolingual transition, and from what my understanding now is, it's like if you really want to get to a high level of Japanese, at a certain point, it has to come from your subconscious mind. So to get technical on this, like the idea of a translation is it's kind of inaccurate that it's ever going to be a one-to-one thing, right? And it's what you were just describing, that Genki, like we've got a couple words you can talk about, but if you think about these words like different pieces of like a timeline or something, there's something in between there that represents that, because it's a different culture that's evolved into that, whatever that is now. So with something like learning a separate language, like you want whatever your speech to be something natural that's coming out, that you don't have to apply patterns to. You don't have to, like we talked about, like music theory sort of idea, that it needs to just be natural what comes out. So that is what I have heard people more experienced than me, like, you know, caution people about that whole like staying bilingual for too long. So
for sure.
Just trying to scare you, you know, that's all, you know.
No. I love it. I love it. I really like enjoy. That's a big thing why I really like following like AJAT and MI and everything like that, because it's a very different approach in terms at least like vocab there. I really like seeing there, and maybe one day I will be convinced fully to go monolingual, but also my entire workflow is very, very focused on not being. So it's going to be a big uprooting of everything, which it's going to take a lot of commitment on my side for that. But it's really interesting that way. I'm sure there's some ways it'll bite me in the ass, but also it's been decent so far.
I think you're also keying in on a good point. Just in general, when you're learning something, it's good to be able to hear out the opposite perspective. Or I mean, in this case, it's two sides of the same coin. But like I was listening to, like I said, like Matt and Dogen's long-term like vision for like what a plan for learning out a language is, and it's like, oh, there's a lot of pitch accent stuff in here, which I've been ignoring. I've also just been ignoring doing things like passive immersion, which Dogen says is one of the most influential things for him, how he actually got good for kind of that shadowing mindset of having those same phrases repeating over and over. I do not like passive immersion. I do not like background immersion, but it's one of those things that I feel like I probably should just get over if I want to like get things to a high enough level. My issue with that is then that's sacrificing other things that I could be doing, like listening to music, which I enjoy, or doing something like listening to audiobooks, which are the only reason why I was able to set myself on the better path that I'm on now. So it's, you have to actively choose which thing you want. But again, back to my main point, it's like you need to be hearing out those opposing opinions sometimes and be able to sort it out. So yeah, again, props to you.
Yeah, it's the same idea for like just having like a filter bubble.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like
Twitter's really good about that too, like encouraging you.
Yes, that's what I love about it. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Your own personal echo chamber. Yes.
Honestly, yeah. But that's how I've been able to like connect with a lot of like people that don't agree with like only are doing monolingual vocab, for example, or doing only through context kind of stuff.
Only
right?
Sentence cards.
It's really cool to see how that. Yeah,
because you mentioned you do like 2-second reviews on your vocab cards, and it's like I've always been slow at Anki, and it's been like 15 seconds with a sentence, and it's never been real fun. What about you, Jordan?
I've had a mixture of both. I think that's why I wanted to ask you that question, on, is because I've had but typically it's like the sentence on the front, on the back. There might be audio, typically audio if I can get it. And yeah, just kind of I try to if it's a lazy day, then it's like, all right, what word in here am I learning, and I'll focus on that.
I
But
see.
if it's like I've had my morning routine and did it right, then I'm fully engaged. So it's like,
Gotcha.
maybe 10 seconds.
I see.
If I had to, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. For my cards, usually they'll always have like, as much as possible, they'll have an example sentence.
Mhm.
If I
That's
need
good.
it, kind of
Mhm.
thing. Like there's a lot. I try to pack a lot of info into it. Like I usually try to put an image at least if it's something that will help to know exactly what it looks like.
I do that on all my
I
cards
have a lot.
too. Images all the way. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. I don't include on everything. Like something like Genki wouldn't help to have a image
It
for
would
that or something like
actually.
that.
That's
You know
what
what
I
I mean?
was surprised by.
Would it?
And here's the
Interesting.
weirder thing. Even if it's not relevant to the word
Mhm.
Genki, simply having an image with a word, that association
Guess so.
somehow makes
I
your
guess so.
brain like trigger it, and you see, like, I may not know how to read the kanji
Mhm.
for Genki. I do, I assure you.
Mhm.
But the
Okay.
the image can trigger like other things in your subconscious mind to bring that up. So it's weird because
Interesting.
I
That's really
actually use automated images. Like I just have a program that just grabs all the images for vocab words that are in a sentence, and they're not always the most relevant, but they always help it stick better. So I say
I see.
all images all the time.
Nice. Love it. Yeah. No, images have helped me a lot. There, I'm more selective though because I haven't automated the whole
Yeah.
process. There, but the ones that I do have images for, usually the ones that I have issues, like usually the ones that have like 2 meanings or 3 meanings, and there's one that's like, which one is the one that people have in their brain when they hear
Yeah.
this word? That's what I want to know the most. And I go to Google Images immediately. They're all of the same thing. I'm like, all right, there we go.
Are you
Kinda thing.
searching in, like, are you using Japanese Google? Because that's another thing I've noticed is if you aren't searching in the right language, it will give you different results. For instance, the word for telescope in Japanese is like binoculars in Chinese. So like those sorts of things do, like, you want to get the image that the native would get. So that is another point.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe I should double check that. I don't know exactly what I put as my link there, but that's a good call. Yeah. Yeah.
So one other question I was going to ask you about, you mentioned in your most recent video you kind of wish you would have struggled with native materials sooner. When do you think is the right time to start doing that struggle with native material?
So one side I'm on is if you don't have a particular need, or like you don't have a particular like driving force to get you to native material right away, if you're a beginner, like I wouldn't force it. I'm mostly just because I'm big on like just chill kind of thing, like do what you want, have fun with it, like whatever. But like for me, I wanted to always play. I had a Game Boy. I had a Game Boy version of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories that I wanted to play.
Is this why you got this
like,
guy on our show, Jordan? A Kingdom Hearts fan, really? Oh my gosh!
Can I quickly, like, I don't know. I'm trying to send it.
Yeah.
Can you see my Kingdom Hearts? Am I getting it? I can't get it.
I saw it. I saw it. I'm holding back my gag reflexes. Jeez.
Don't have me come get mine. I have mine right in the back. Yes.
That's what
the real weebs.
So anyway, enough deep weeb talk there, but whatchamacallit?
Yeah,
So I wanted
Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah, so I got it for like $7 at my local like used game store, and I was like, all right, I want to play this game, and I played through it and I didn't understand anything, and I was like, maybe I'll come back to it like in 6 months and see how much I understand. I should have just kept going. Like I really should have just kept going. Stuff like that, right? Because I had something I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
In that case, I always like would urge people to keep going and fighting for it. But if you don't have anything, you just kind of want to learn Japanese, maybe you have a show or something, rewatch your show and everything. But like, I don't know, just have fun with it. If you're having fun, then you're doing the right thing, I think. You know?
That's fair. Yeah, I would say that was my biggest regret, like if I went back, like I would start almost immediately. And that's also another thing that I was surprised to hear other people talk about, that it's actually useful to get maybe 6 months of traditional study in there, kind of get the foundation. The thing that I think is useful though is just getting people from day one. Yeah, like if you really want this language to stick that you're learning, like you should be finding something that you enjoy in that content. Otherwise, I would really question if like what you would expect to get out of it, right? Like,
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm willing to hear this out, but like maybe it's probably not worth going down this path. We have all really serious people here, but I would be very interested in what people would gain from, say, stopping at an N5 level or something like that, where it's like you can do really basic, really cookie cutter conversations, but you're not going to be able to understand the content, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's one of.
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
go
sure
ahead. There's always somebody.
I'm sure some people that just like want to be able to read hiragana, and that's it.
Yeah,
They just want to be able to read it
That's
and
true.
like say they can read it. And sure, I do your thing, kind of thing, right? If that was your goal, then you reached your goal with Japanese. If you're at your end of your Japanese journey there, wonderful. You've beat all of us to it, because we're all still fighting.
So just where I'm going with that again is the native content. I would say I would really encourage people, don't let it intimidate you, because the most important skill I think you can learn through this is toleration for ambiguity. Like whenever you're learning a language, like there's always going to be something you don't understand. You forget about that being in a native language, but it does exist there too. That actually has a lot more applications than just language learning. Ambiguity in life, like as far as like working at a job and software, there's always something you don't understand. There's always new things. Turns out nobody really knows what they're doing. That's what the founder of Reddit told me when he did a talk at our college. So it's like, yeah, just keep that in mind. Nobody really knows what they're doing. They just have better tolerance for ambiguity probably than you do at this point in your life. And that's one of those things that you can 100%. Just keep building up tolerance for ambiguity, keep taking on things like that you're not understanding, even if you're not understanding it, but make sure you're enjoying it. Like you said, you gotta, how did you say it? You gotta keep the brain juice fresh or something like that?
Yeah, you gotta revive the brain
juice. All right, so we've been going for a while here. Let's go ahead and switch over to the QA side of things. If anybody is still on Twitch, feel free to chat now. Any questions that you have for Alex or anybody else, side characters on the Deep Weeb show, you can. At this point, let's go ahead and jump into some content recommendations. So I'll go first, and then I'll pass it over to Jordan, and then we'll close out with Alex. So as far as content, I have been playing, like I said, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. Surprised at how it's doable right now at my level. I would definitely consider this one an advanced one. There's a lot of interesting jargon and things that come into it around the different factions of the demons and that sort of thing. So it's things that you wouldn't understand in English. So like, don't sweat it. More beginner level stuff though. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is another one that I've been playing for forever, but I've never actually gotten all the way through. It's one of those games that, first off, the battle system is really good. So it is an RPG. I don't know how familiar people out there would be with this one, but it's like Mario attacks an enemy with a standard like RPG style, and then you actually have to do a button press at the right time to get like bonus points, essentially bonus damage to them. And then all the enemies actually have unique animations. And so they'll like come and attack you, and then you have to do like, jump at the right time. And if you time it right, you can actually get, jump on them, or you can just dodge them completely. Those sorts of like action elements inside of a standard RPG. It's kind of interesting. I actually really like the battle system in it. But I will say, for a beginner's point of view, it's got furigana in it. So that's very accessible. Also, it's a Mario game. So if you don't understand something, you'll probably be fine. So this is again where recommending things for native content. Like it's okay to pick out things that maybe isn't your top tier thing. Like for me was Nocturne. You start off with some of these other things that if you miss a few sentences, that's fine. You'll get it. Jordan, what about you? What you got, man?
I would say same. So Shinigami Tensei. I've been playing Nocturne. A lot of fun. As far as what I've been reading, so Rising of the Shield Hero. If you've seen that anime, I'm reading the novel. It's great. Anime wise, it's been on Netflix for a while, but I kind of got back into it. It was Beastars.
Dude, that one's awesome.
I was, yeah.
I hear good things.
I was way surprised. I was like, "Whoa, this is way better than I thought it was."
And it's be. CG. It's the only good CG anime I think I've seen.
The Baki one isn't bad.
I don't think I've watched all the way through.
It had this moment. Yeah. But and then after that, Ease. So we had Creative Kohi come on talking about Ease, and it was like on sale for like 30 or $40 on the Japanese Play Store. So I was like, snagged it. So those have been trading off when I want some action. So yeah,
very cool. What about you, Alex? What you got, man?
For me, I was about to say something, but I almost forgot. I'm going to start off with a non-Japanese recommendation. Just because I really like this game. Hades. It's everywhere right now.
Yeah.
Great time. I love playing games that are not Japanese sometimes because it's just I would never be able to handle that in Japanese either way. It's very like Greek mythology, and the words they use are even in English I sometimes don't understand. So but it's a good time. I recommend that if you want a break from immersion. But otherwise, what else am I doing? Shadowing has been something. I was doing something, but as Jordan was talking, I totally slipped my mind. And
I'll fill in for you real quick. Okay, so
I
mentioned off the show, Halloween's tomorrow. I forgot my spoopy recommendations, which are Jinmen, which is a manga about essentially animals that start to become people, and they get human faces, and they look absolutely terrifying. And they're not too happy with how animals have been treated, and then they start killing everybody. It has really good pacing. It's a very easy, it's a good beginner manga, I would say. And it also, because of the good pacing, it makes it really easy to read. It's got a lot of weird imagery, very creepy, great for Halloween. The other one that I would recommend is Umezo Kazuo, and this is a pretty classic horror author in Japan that did a lot of manga stuff. Pretty famous, influenced people like Junji Ito, who's famous for Uzumaki, a lot of mainstream manga horror stuff. But anyways, Umezo Kazuo is the guy who influenced, like I said, Junji Ito. He did The Drifting Classroom, which is another classic, and it's about kids that essentially all of the weird things happen to them in this school, and they are no longer where they thought they were, and kids just start getting stabbed out the wazoo.
Nice.
It's pretty good. Yeah. So check those ones out. The Drifting Classroom's like 11 volumes. It's another good one for beginners because the vocab's going to repeat a lot in that, and it's also children speaking, so you're not going to be encountering anything too weird. You might learn the word for bubonic plague, but other than that, there's a lot of weird, awful things that happen to these children. So you won't be able to sleep at night, but you will get a little bit better at Japanese. Alex, back to you. I stalled as long as I could, bud.
Yes. No, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I did remember what I wanted to say. But it's just, there's nothing Halloween related. That's okay. Sadly, I don't celebrate it too much myself. But it was the anime that I'm currently watching whenever I can, and that is I'm finally got into the English name is out of my mind. The alchemy one.
Full Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist.
That's a good one.
Yes, Full Metal Alchemist. Brotherhood.
Yes, there you made the right choice, my friend.
I hear no one has said bad choice
Top
yet,
notch.
so I feel like where are these other people? Where is it? People say it's 50-50, but I never see the other 50.
That is the best, one of the best god tier level animes. I can't wait to read it as a manga. Yeah,
it's been really good so far. I didn't know that the people that made Hunter also made this one before, I think, or
same animation studio, or it's different author.
So.
I know that.
Someone told me that, and if so, then I believe them because I don't know. Both have been incredible so far. But yeah, no, that's been really good. I've learned a lot of great vocab from that as well. I am watching it in English with my girlfriend currently, but even just like I love having like something that's still like that kind of passive watching, and then they'll say something and I'm like, I want to say that, or they'll say something, I'm like, what the English did, like usually it matches up for me, but this time it didn't match up. Like what did they say thing? So some great vocab there that is actually surprisingly useful sometimes. But
a lot of military stuff in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one.
Attack on Titan, for example, destroyed me when I tried.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say. Is those two series in particular? I have both. I have subs to SRS decks that are available online. People can find them. And so they have all the sentences from that, and those are like my go-to series because first off, like those are some of the best animes I think that have come out. And they also have a lot of words in common. So if you get through Attack on Titan, you can probably do Full Metal Alchemist. If you get through Full Metal Alchemist, you can probably do Attack on Titan. So those are good options, and the Anki decks are out there. So check it out. Full audio, images, all that fun stuff already pre-made for you.
Wow. Very nice.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Jordan, where can people find you online?
On Twitter and on YouTube. I think I'm on Jordan's Journey on YouTube, and then Twitter I'm like bearded SSJ. So yeah, come find me.
Okay. And Alex, how about you? Where are you at on the internet?
You can find me if you search SomewhatJP. I'm on Twitter and YouTube. I'm also on Instagram as somewhat.jp because they didn't let me not have a dot. I don't really use Instagram too much, but it's there. Yeah, come, let's chat about monolingual versus bilingual.
There you go. And you guys know you can find me at KanjiEater. This is airing on KanjiEater, twitch.tv/KanjiEater. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to keep some more stuff coming out. We're scheduling our next couple guests, so I think there'll really be some people that you guys are interested in. And from here, I'd like to wrap up on the question we'd like to ask our guests, which is, what's one piece of advice you'd give someone on the path to learning new skills?
I said it kind of before, but if you're not having fun, if you're starting to hate what you're doing it wrong. There's something wrong. Not that you're doing it wrong. Something needs to be changed. Something needs to change. You know, if you find yourself dreading something, there's a reason. Change what you're doing, kind of thing. A lot of people get stuck in their ways, and I don't like seeing that because people have so much potential, but they're just following the wrong advice. They're doing something. So just have fun with it. Nothing is as serious as it seems.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Alex, again, thanks so much for joining the show. Please do come back.
Thank you.
We will.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
We'll definitely, like I said, be having some more guests on pretty soon. So, yeah, again, follow us on Twitter, all three of us, and check us out. All of us have YouTube channels now as well. So we'll see you guys at the next one. All right. Bye.